In a Florida police interrogation room, the girl's brother revealed startling information 24 years after she disappeared on Thanksgiving. David Lambert struggles to make a confession. The reason he's there is that his sister vanished over 24 years ago, and the police are attempting to wrap up the investigation. Is David, however, more knowledgeable about the mystery than he has been revealing? Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. As the authorities will soon discover, the 38-year-old does, in fact, feel obligated to divulge a secret, and it's a rather unsettling one. Beginning on November 27, 1985, is the narrative. In those days, David and his sister Martha Jean resided in St. Augustine, a city on Florida's northeast coast. With their parents, Howard and Margaret. The Lambert family lived in a trailer in a semi-rural region a few miles from well-known beaches, just like many of their neighbors. David was 14 at the time, and Martha Jean was 12. The younger sibling, who weighed just 70 pounds, was a little girl enrolled in the 7th grade at Keterlinus Junior High School in the city. But even with her little stature, David said Martha Jean was a force to be reckoned with because of her confrontational personality. In November of 1985, the Lambert family was preparing for Thanksgiving. Sadly, unfortunately, they burnt the turkey, which infuriated Howard. Martha Jean and David were so ready to get out of the trailer and away from their father's yelling. While strolling around their neighborhood, David offered his younger sister some cash to shop at a nearby store. Then, while traveling, David and Martha Jean came across the now-closed Florida Memorial College, which had been deserted for a number of years. Nevertheless, the institution was a well-liked playground for the neighborhood's kids, despite being littered with broken glass and debris. As one officer would put it in a 2010 interview with the St. Augustine Record, the area is like a poor kid's Disney World. Unfortunately, though, a terrible turn was about to come for David and Martha Jean's voyage. David said his sister had made the decision to play somewhere else and quit the abandoned college. She then just kind of disappeared. Despite the police's following investigation into Martha Jean's location, the girl was never located. Over the next years, several attempts were made to discover what happened to Martha Jean. However, police had known from the beginning of the inquiry that David could know more than he was disclosing. However, law enforcement was unable to prosecute Martha Jean's brother because there was insufficient evidence to establish that a crime had been committed. In the meantime, St. Augustine's life continued. Margaret and Howard parted ways, devastated by the loss of their daughter. Then, in 2000, David was facing charges from the police for allegedly trying to draft a fraudulent check. Upon being pulled up, he allegedly made an odd admission. In fact, St. Johns County Detective Sean Tice said that David had claimed to know what had happened to Martha Jean in a 2010 interview with the Florida Times-Union. David reportedly responded, "I need to get this off my chest. I'm responsible for my sister's death." Apparently, he went on to confess that he had buried Martha Jean in a local coquina mine. But when police arrived at the mine to investigate the claim, they could find no trace of Martha Jean's remains. In the absence of this vital evidence, no charges were brought against David. Then, in June 2010, Tice and another detective, Howard Cole III, made a final attempt to solve the most enduring missing person case that the county had ever known. Initially, Tice and Cole began their investigation by interviewing friends, family members, and neighbors who had lived near the Lamberts at the time of Martha Jean's disappearance. Interestingly, some of them recommended that the cops investigate David's account more thoroughly. Consequently, Tice and Cole summoned David into the interview room in August 2010. In 3 sessions, David, who is now in his 30s, progressively admitted to being involved in his sister's disappearance. It seems that upon their arrival at Florida Memorial College on that fateful day in 1985, Martha Jean had requested him for extra money. But her brother had turned down that offer. David said that after Martha became aggressive and struck her brother, he pushed her away in reaction. However, it is said that the small girl was shoved so hard that she fell backwards and smacked her head on a protruding piece of metal. It seems that the metal punctured her head, leaving a deadly wound. Therefore, David thought that he had contributed to his sister's death, albeit tangentially. Meanwhile, Tice's report would disclose that David claimed to have made an effort to assist the girl. At first, D. Lambert said, when he lifted Martha up, there was a large hole in the back of her head, and blood was pouring out. D. Lambert claimed in his letter that when he first cried out for assistance, he did so in the hopes that someone might happen to pass by and hear him. But when no one came, David is said to have taken matters into his own hands. Allegedly, he used a broken road sign as a shovel to dig a makeshift grave. When the detectives asked David why he had not told his parents the truth, he explained that he had been scared of their reaction. In fact, Tice believes that David was living in fear of his mother, Margaret, a situation that apparently remained the case at the time of the man's confession. He was terrified of his mama, Tice wrote. Still is. David eventually drafted and signed a statement in which he finally acknowledged his involvement in his sister's murder, pushed on by a picture of Martha Jean that Tice had put on the table. That wasn't all, though. David prepared a map for the investigators that identified the plot that the Florida Memorial College was built upon in addition to the written statement. It purportedly revealed Martha Jean's burial place. After then, a team was sent out to inspect the area, but they were unable to find a corpse despite the fact that trained police dogs responded to a certain area. Margaret, on the other hand, has been more difficult to persuade of David's participation in the case. The mother does not trust her son's confession, since, in her opinion, he has a history of making up things to gain attention. Rather, she firmly believes that her daughter was abducted. David then retracted his testimony, adding to the uncertainty by saying that he had just given the cops what he thought they wanted to hear. However, in spite of Margaret's objections, the case of Martha Jean's disappearance has been closed. It was reported in a 2010 news statement from the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office that Martha Jean's brother will not be charged, despite the fact that authorities think David is responsible. Charges would not be brought due to modifications made to the law since 1985, the statute of limitations, the age of the suspect at the time, and other mitigating factors. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.